All right, take two, maybe three, of the top 20 video game music picks selected by the chat. This time, in honor of my birthday, I'm still alive, 365 days in a row without an accident or something on purpose, resulting in an injury that would stop me from doing the show or death. This is Trackmania 2's Vast Viridian, chosen by Horky during our Rolling Race episode, and this track just blew me away and is one of my favorite tracks of all time. So, let's get on to it. Our first official selection from Super Smash Bros Wii U. This is Wii Sports Resort version 2. Claudio chose this as all of his picks are songs from previous episodes where there was a song that he thought I especially liked. This is from Top 20 Sports Week. God, that is a friggin' great track. I mean, it's so fun and dancey, but that lyrical synth melody is just so... It's so, like, wistful and kind of... It's got this, like, innocence, but it's just really reaching for the stars. It's got so much hopefulness, optimism, and then the second section just gives me all that crazy, dramatic chordal movements that I just die for. And then that super optimistic key change that comes the third time around. Oh, right here when these like dramatic chords are coming in on themselves and they're setting you up with this tension, and then the thing just bloody explodes with the key change. Soon. Oh yeah! So this is Horky's submission in the chat from Ragnarok Online, High Roller Coaster, with some similarities. I mean, it's the same instrument too. Really similar phrasing. And rhythm, and I think key. Our next choice, selected by Rudi from Final Fantasy XIII. This is Dust to Dust, composed by Masashi Hamauzu, the Urba theme. Masashi Hamauzu is so bloody good. He is probably the king of this generation ambient music. Like David Wise with Donkey Kong Country, he just had a way of creating ambience, but not making it just sit there. It still felt like it was going somewhere. Oh, this one's got a bit of a beat. Almost like a waltz feel to it, but it's a bit like halftime. Oh no, yeah, it's not a waltz at all, but it's just really slow, really emphasizing the inputs in between. But I mean, it does sound like you've just come to this place that has been completely covered up with sand, you know? Like it's just been kind of blown away, and you knew that a lot of things happened here before, and there's like an ancient weight to it. A lot of civilization and magic and mysticism, but now it's sort of like the ruins of it, and like sand and wind have just filled it up halfway, and you think over in a certain amount of time it'll be completely gone. From Celeste, this is Celestial Resort, the Good Karma mix. It is remixed by Christa Lee, originally composed by raine, and Longbow chose this for us and me. Okay. Man, I wonder how much of that is the remix. Probably the drums. The drums feel really loud in the mix, but I think they work really well. It's a song that has, like a lot of Celeste tracks, it tends to use sort of like a simple descending chord progression to create that sort of sadness and drama, with a lot of fast things moving underneath a much slower progression, which kind of feels like no matter what you're doing, you're still being oppressed. And you think of this game, there's a lot of ascending up mountains and descending down mountains, and you're moving as fast as you can, while trying to be precise, and dealing with the oppression of your almost guaranteed deaths, because there's no way you're getting through this without dying and failing many, many, many times. Next up, from Octopath Traveler, a game I recently started playing, this is Primrose's theme, composed by Yasunori Nishiki, chosen by Steve. Yeah, I really like this one. It definitely has that sort of Chrono Cross feel with the exotic instruments and the dancey waltz time. It sounds exotic, but it sounds approachable. It sounds warm and cozy. It sounds kind of mystical, but grounded. It does a lot of things. This composer really did a beautiful job and said that they were quite inspired by Nobuo Uematsu, especially. I feel like they never really go outside of the box the way Uematsu does. He just does these things where all of a sudden it kind of sparks your ear a bit, which goes a long way when you need to hear something over and over and over again. But these songs are just so pleasing to hear anyway that it doesn't matter if you hear them a lot. Next up, chosen by Chris. He knows me well. This is from a Shadowrun game. Shadowrun Returns, the big reboot after Shadowrun was a very successful and well-loved RPG way back on the Genesis and Super Nintendo. There were two different versions of the game. The game franchise lay dormant for many years until reappearing strangely on the Xbox 360 after Microsoft bought it as a online character-based shooter, probably a whole generation ahead, too far ahead of its time. And it was not very well loved, and it didn't do very well at all. The franchise remained dormant for many years. Sorry, that was probably pretty quiet. The franchise remained dormant for many, many years until returning as a Kickstarter game by Harebrained Schemes. They put out a nice trilogy. Shadowrun Returns was their first effort. Pretty solid game. Dragonfall was a second, an amazing game. And Hong Kong, which was okay. But this is from Shadowrun Returns. It is Puppet Masters, and it is composed by Marshall Parker, Gavin Parker, and Sam Powell. And I believe it's Sam Powell, if not the other guys, composed on the original Shadowrun soundtracks. Whoops. Yeah, it looks very Gimli-ish. There are a few quotes from their older soundtracks. I think the ones that were like da 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 da. Yeah, it's got a nice kind of gooey, slimy but really synth-heavy cyberpunk feel to it. And it's got a real sort of darkness hanging over it. Shadowrun is a pretty dark universe where the corporations have achieved an incredible power and really run the world. And there are the few ultra-rich, but it's forced a lot of people to live in basically the gutters. And even if they have a great job or a job enough to survive, they're still considered, wage slaves. Like, you get enough to entertain yourself, but are you really free, man? And God, I love Shadowrun so much. It just did such a great job of taking all these D&D rules and stats from the tabletop game and putting it into this real-time RPG that had an open-ended random mission generator. It's just incredible. I'll have to do a playthrough on it here one time when the time is right. This is from the Genesis version. Shadowrun Returns is actually more of like a CRPG. It's more like, it's kind of like it's like XCOM, but with story. You know, it's more like, I guess, what would you call it? Divinity Original Sin, but a very simplistic one. So if you're looking to get into CRPGs, I would definitely recommend Returns or Dragonfall. So this person, they didn't bother to put the name of the game or the track or the composer like everybody else did. So I'm not going to bother telling you who picked it. Wink, wink, stab, stab. Right. This is from Shin Megami Tensei 5. It is the theme for the character Amanozako, composed by Ryota, Kozuka, and Toshiki Konishi. That's a great little soundtrack. Yeah, I agree with, I think it was Claudio. Those chords in the background, they're sort of like, I forget how they describe them. They used them in like 80s and 90s techno. They're called like Chicago chords. That tone and that chord shape. They almost just sound like wooden blocks. And yeah, I agree, the overall melody could probably use a little bit more imagination. Something else going on. It just sounds sort of like a first take, and then they moved on. But it's the background is so good, you don't really need a great melody. And you almost don't want to distract from how great the background is. So yeah, the reason we've got that weird flag is they're showing you what she sounds like in Japanese and English. Too bad you can't fly away with those wings. From Star Ocean 3, this is Around on the Wilderness, composed by a favorite of this channel, of this series, Motoi Sakuraba, chosen by Xenmas. nice gooey groove. Sounds like he's having a lot of fun messing around on the PS2 with so many more abilities to just expand your sound. And it's using that 7/8 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Rather than going to 8, so it feels like it's cutting off a little early. Which is good if you want to be all proggy and shreddy, and it just makes things feel, especially when you're using a lot of polyrhythms and different instruments doing different rhythms overlapping with each other. Just gives it kind of a off-kilter feel. Just makes it feel a little more dense, more complex. This next one is chosen by Prince, so have a look. This is from Super Seducer 3. The track is Val. This is Super Seducer 3, Whispers of Love. Chosen by Prince. I don't know who composed this. But it's some kind of like romantic dating simulator. But I think I remember the track being pretty good when I previewed it. One of the options was, if you look here, so let's go and work up an appetite. Take your hand and lead her to the bedroom. Tell her you need to meet your activity goal, so need 20 minutes of hard banging. I don't think this gets R-rated. Is that are they standing in front of a green screen, or does it just look super terrible and flat? It's weird seeing actors that aren't in main things. They always have something odd with their face. Unless that's like an odd, cute thing. Anyway, the track was really great. I was pretty distracted by the game. Ask her how much you owe her. What? Talk about how maybe she can come with you in your yearly trip. So you need to wake up early so you'll send her home after eating. 100 RMB. Where is this? Are they European? They have a European vibe. He's got a little bit of sweat after some hard banging. I like eating after. I agree. From Xenogears, this is Shevat, The Wind is Calling. Composed by the great Yasunori Mitsuda. Chosen by Rudi. that nice, like, tinkling, light arpeggio melody. You got a really beautiful, soft, kind of like flute JRPG melody. But then, just like a gorgeous, lush, sort of like very vocal synth pad. It just kind of blends. It sounds like a mirage. And then you've got like a great groove that sounds like it could also be out of Chrono Cross. And to top it all off, you've got this bass that sounds like it's played on a fretless with, and it keeps pushing. Boom, 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 like salsa. Boom, boom. Rather than, a lot of times in North American music, the bass will almost do everything on the 1, 4, and boom, 2, 3, boom, boom. But it's hitting that bass right before the 1. It's nice. It's beautiful. Next up, from Final Fantasy X, this is Movement in Green, composed by Nobuo Uematsu and Nakano. This is the first time that Uematsu had to share the composition duties on a Final Fantasy game. And I believe Hamauzu actually makes his first appearance in Final Fantasy with some of the spacier, more ambient tracks. This one's chosen by Longbow. Nakano is the first name of the person that worked with Uematsu on this. What a beautiful track. I mean, it starts off and he sets a great background piece for it. You think, all right, it's got that kind of exotic feel. But when his melody comes in, it's just, I don't know, there's just something so, it's like almost kind of cheeky. It's almost mischievous. There's so much personality in it. And then when that accordion comes in later, there's just, he tells so much of the overall game's theme of, it's exotic, so it feels like you're traveling to different places. I mean, Titus has never been to any of these places before. And some of the characters, I'm sure some have been and done this before, so it's kind of new to them. So it's exotic, but like I said before, exotic but also homey and comfy. But there's that weight, the weight of the journey that they're on, where it's necessary, it's interesting, but there's a sadness to it. There's like some sort of minor elements in the music that make it seem kind of mournful, and the way that they play and perform the melodies, even though the melodies themselves, if you play them a little like peppier, they would be really exciting and really hopeful, but they're just done in this kind of, well, especially with like a slow waltz, it gives it kind of a floatingness, and just makes it's just a perfect way of describing the adventure you go on in this game. Claudio has chosen another one from the past, from our top 20 PlayStation 1 week, composed by Yamane Michiru. This is from Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Crystal Teardrops. So many cool elements in this. There's a lot of key changes that just make it feel really kind of off-putting. You got these sort of like frozen sounding chords fading in and fading out that don't have any kind of attack. Makes them feel kind of magical. And like somebody described, that piano is really kind of dragging behind, and it almost sounds like it's like an old-timey piano that you would hear, well, in maybe like a very old vampire place, like an old place in Romania. But it almost sounds kind of like the piano you'd hear at an old cowboy saloon or something. And then when that harpsichord comes in with that sort of like counterpoint melody, or what would you call that? It's like a pedaling melody where you have one note at the bottom. Just so beautiful. And this key change here, it just evokes so much mystery and elegance and magic from this world. And then those super, super compressed PlayStation 1 drum samples in the back. So good. Hey, a Jeremy Soul track that is not from Elder Scrolls. This Feels Like Destiny from Call of the Starseed, chosen by Chris. Really beautiful track. It's probably one of the like faster moving tracks that Jeremy Soule has done. Those opening kind of frozen with the underneath it really reminds me of Adagio for the Strings, which I believe I put somewhere here for you to listen to. I grabbed a MIDI version because it's a well-known classical piece. Anyway, that is Adagio for the Strings. Kind of reminded me of it. And that's it. Thanks, Chris. This next one is from Death Stranding. It is Cargo Fast, composed by Ludwig Forssell. Well, this uncredited person definitely picked a great song. I love it. It definitely does sound, it's a little more humorous and sort of tongue-in-cheek than what Death Stranding is. A lot of the music in Death Stranding is like super serious, super emotional, but it works for the world that Kojima's created. But Kojima also has a lot of funny moments, so I think having something like this that just really buys into, we'll never know who picked it. They're not the kind of people that like to give credit to composers or do anything helpful to the person running the show. So, I don't know. I don't know who it was. I guess we'll never know. But yeah, this sounds like it's sort of a parody of like an 80s montage. You know, then like a big wanky guitar solo. Fun song though. From Xenoblade Chronicles 2, this is Yggdrasil, YGG, Drassel, composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, picked by Michael Corey. Composed by Miriam Abu-Nassar. Wait, that's not right. Forget I said the part about Miriam. Oh, it was arranged by Miriam Abu-Nassar. Okay. All right. Oh, that's from the final dungeon. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Prince, desolate yet grand is a pretty good way to put it. It's interesting to start off with those choirs. That kind of threw me off, but it makes sense if it's a final dungeon. You're trying to add this importance to it. But once it gets going, it's just such a fun kind of like prog rocky groove. The drums are really allowed to build up. Just almost like a mini drum solo or a drum feature within it. It does have it has a finality and an emptiness and sort of a hollowness, but it just sounds really big and clean and funky and important. It sounds like everything has been leading up to this moment, but there's still a bit of work to do. Next up, chosen by Steve from Dragon Quest VIII, the Symphonic Suite. This is Mysterious Tower, composed by Koichi Sugiyama. Man, a really, really beautiful piece. There's so much great Dragon Quest music. This is the first Dragon Quest game to not be called Dragon Warrior in North America. Also, the North American version of the game got this. This is recorded by the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra. And the Japanese one had sequenced music, so MIDI and the like. And then when they put it on the 3DS, they used the Japanese MIDI version. The 3DS versions swapped the soundtracks with the Japanese one using the Symphonic Suite orchestral recordings, and then the North American PAL, iOS, and Android all have sequenced music. So on the Japanese 3DS, they had this symphonic recording. That is crazy. It's so nice. It's just so gentle and light and subtle and gorgeous. This is where you really feel the benefit of having a full orchestra. Oh my God, so gorgeous, so warm, so beautiful, very hopeful. This next one was a total surprise, which is no surprise considering it came from Prince. This is from Tomodachi Life, the Mi Home's romantic theme, composed by Daisuke Matsuoka and Asuka Ito. Have a look. Man, this is like achingly beautiful. It does kind of have that cheesy, almost like it's like a clarinet pretending to be a saxophone. But the chords in there, oh my god, there's just so much, they have so much like tension and release. And then that quick kind of like tremolo picking, almost like an Italian kind of mandolin. Or whatever they call their stringed instruments that are small. It almost sounds like a more positive version, like a major version of the Calling the Four Giants in Majora's Mask. But when it descends to this chord here, and I love the sort of like back and forth where you have like the, I don't know if it's like a clarinet talking to an oboe, but there's a call and response that they're doing, which works if you have these two characters that are, you know, professing their love to each other and the magic of their love surrounding them and all that crap. Our next one is also similarly tight and dramatic and intense. This is from Blasphemous. The track is Entregaras tu rostro a la Signora. Chosen from our top 20 Metroidvania week, composed by Carlos Viola, and chosen by Claudio. This song is a great example for how the bass really has so much power. Whereas the first part of it, there's a lot of movement with all the other instruments moving to different notes, but the bass stays on that dun, 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 and it stays in the same note, even when it really feels like the bass should be playing something different. It's just because everything else is moving around it. So the bass staying on that same note recontextualizes what everything else is doing, and then when it finally gives in and goes to a couple notes higher, it's such a load off. It's such, we've been held down and kind of oppressed by this bass forever as things are swirling around, and then it finally takes off to that next note, and it's just such an incredible emotional uplift. It's quite nice. Next up, check this out. Xenon. This is a game originally put out in 1988, but this is the 1994 version that was on the PC 98. That's right, the PC 98. So you know Rudy picked it, composed by Ryu Umemoto. This is the main theme from Xenon. Track. Yep, you know me pretty well. Some spacey sounds on the incredible PC98, like advanced version of the Genesis chip, of that FM synth chip. It stays very floaty because there's never a snare. Every time you think you're going to hear, it doesn't do it. And then just sometimes there's another kick. So it almost just sounds like you're kind of like float, and there's never that hard. So it never feels like you're sort of on the ground and running. It feels like you're floating in space, twirling around. Really great track and totally unexpected. And something I never would have heard in my whole life if not for you guys. Hey, next up we have a Prince pick. This is from No Straight Roads. The track is Contemplate, and it is written by Funk Fiction. Yeah, that electric piano, those gated reverby drums on the snare especially. Sometimes the reverse snare hit. Just really beautiful, so chill, and like electric guitar that is really not annoying at all. Kind of reminds me of that guy Myrone, Myrone, who does softcore metal. That was really, really beautiful. Prince, he did a fantastic job of picking some tracks that are absolutely some of my favorites that you've ever picked. I thought this was really sweet. This next one is Maruki's theme from Persona 5 Royale. And Michael C., also known as Xenmas, chose this because the character Maruki only starts working at the school just like how Matt has just began working at a school. How sweet is that? This is Ideal in the Real from Persona 5 Royale, composed by the Atlas Sound Team. All the Persona soundtracks are so good, and Persona 5 just really embraced nice funk, and then it was so perfect because they could amp it up for the heist missions and the boss stuff, but a lot of Personas, reading or listening to dialogue and doing side activities and stuff, and this one went for like a really strong, expressive visual style, and they just embraced that by funk being this music. It's really, really chill, but it's also, you can be incredibly expressive. Like a lot of jazz musicians, they love playing funk fusion because they can nerd out and like shred and but you got the constant rhythm, and this one's like incredibly swung and shuffled. I was not playing the Royale version of this one, but this is when I had, I'm laying down, which is perfect for the vibe of this game and the music, but I'd thrown out my back. 2018. So I was trying to figure out, I couldn't sit in a chair, so I thought maybe I'll just lay on the ground. Kind of worked. Sitting on a medicine ball was the ultimate solution. Chosen by Kris, composed by Koji Kondo, orchestrated by Chris Findlator. This is from Super Mario World, one of my all-time favorite themes. One of my first favorite video game themes, the castle theme. we've talked about this track a lot, but with this fan-made remaster, I think it does a really good job of making it more epic than it has ever been. That sounds like such a lame thing to say. Like, everybody tries to make things sound epic, but for such an epic song, it's never really had an epic treatment because it's done on the very farty Super Nintendo. But the composition was so strong that it didn't matter, and it fit the cozy world of Super Mario World. I just talked over my favorite part. When it finally breaks free and changes key. That raised note. Good Lord. And one of the greatest things is that every track in Super Mario World is the same melody. This is just a minor version of it. So you'll see that trend people have of putting stuff on YouTube where they go, it's like a super pop song, but in a minor key. And this is the first time where they did that. They just took something, that same bum bum ba-dum 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 bum 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 bum, but in a minor key. Okay, from Disco Elysium, this is Whirling in Rags, the night version, composed and performed by Sea Power.